What are some of the craziest and biggest mistakes banks have made? Let's get right into it with number 7, bank error proposals. An Australian woman from the city of Gold Coast suddenly found herself with a $10 million bank account balance she couldn't explain. Sue Lamb was simply taking some cash out of her credit card when she saw she had an outstanding balance of almost $10 million. Surprised, she immediately called the ANZ bank to tell them about the error, but was told by an agent that it was actually her money and they couldn't really do anything about it. While she kept telling them that this money didn't belong to her, the bank was very adamant on stating that it was a result of compounding of her company's money. The problem was, she doesn't own any company, but the bank kept insisting it was hers. A few days later, when she checked her account balance once again, the money was finally gone. But to add to her frustration, it turns out now she was $7,500 in debt. But how did this happen? As this happened on Valentine's Day, Lamb joked around saying maybe the bank's CEO wanted to marry her. According to the ANZ Bank, Lamb had opted for an unlimited spend cap on her credit card, which is why the amount shown on the ATM was so staggeringly high. The money she was seeing was actually the amount of money she could spend, not her actual bank statement. What was really weird was that the ATM decided to show her spend cap rather than the actual money she had. When Lamb first saw the money on the ATM, she posted a photo on Facebook, which immediately went viral. As expected, the woman was also flooded with hundreds of emails requesting money, as well as, shockingly, a lot of wedding proposals. After the initial inconvenience, the bank finally contacted Lamb, explaining the whole situation, and eliminated the $7,500 debt the system had put on her account too. One of the reasons Lamb went viral and was contacted by local media was the good disposition with which she handled the whole situation. The many interviews she did are proof of that. As far as we know, she still isn't married today. Number 6. Luck of the Irish. When it looks too good to be true, the safest bet is to assume that it is. This was the case for Margaret McDonnell of Finglas, Ireland. The single mother checked her bank account one day and noticed the bank had deposited €51,000. When she saw her new balance, she went on a spending spree that was almost limitless. McDonnell got shoes and clothes for her children, went out for dinner with friends and family for 2 weeks straight, bought lavish crystalware, and even a mushroom lamp. McDonnell, when confronted by the authorities, pleaded guilty to 13 charges of theft of cash, all of it happening within a 2 weeks time span. During her almost infinite spending spree in cash withdrawals, McDonnell had spent almost $27,000. She was initially given an 18-month sentence. Turns out, the bank mistake came from an international operation. A customer of Bank of Ireland had approached one of its branches to get account details so he could receive a €51,000 transfer from overseas. He was given the transfer information, including an international bank account number, but the money never showed up. He tried contacting the bank asking for the money's whereabouts. They would find out he had mistakenly transferred the money to McDonnell's account. As money appeared on her account, it only took her a day to take out €5,000. From then on, it was a never-ending spending spree. McDonnell told authorities she really just thought the money was hers since it was in her bank account. After noticing the error, the bank took away the remaining €26,000 McDonnell had left. She had been contacted via mail by the bank to pay back the money, but she ignored the requests. McDonnell said she ignored the letter because she realized she had done something terrible and was genuinely scared. Her spending spree included a lot of cheap household items that made the judge question exactly why, out of all the things she could have bought, she decided to go with those. McDonnell is a small-town girl that had never seen this amount of money in her life. Given she hadn't had any prior offenses and had a virtually clean slate, McDonnell had her sentence overturned and given a lighter punishment, as it was very unlikely she'd reoffend. The judge asked her to pay €1,000 back within a year and perform 150 hours of community service. Number 5. From Russia with errors. In June 2020, a digital banking error changed Roman Yurkov's life forever. The 35-year-old resident of the town of Tulsa in Russia found a whopping $1.3 million in his bank account when he was withdrawing some money. As an avid gambler, Yurkov said he thought the money came from his earnings and were directly related to his bookmaker's office. He even called his bank to make sure everything was in order and was told that everything was okay. With this in mind, Yurkov started withdrawing money through his bookmaker and spending it all around, executing an impressive 220 transactions in one night. On the night of May 31st to June 1st, Yurkov made purchases that included 4 different properties, a BMW, a Mercedes-Benz, and an iPhone. While on his spending spree, Yurkov was in regular contact with the bank and was told that everything was under control by the institution. Yurkov felt like he was living a dream, probably because it's Russia, but it took a while for the bank to notice the unusual movements. By November, Yurkov's account had been blocked. He had $540,000 left, and a month later, he was arrested. Given the size of his theft, Yurkov was charged with Article 158 of the Russian Federation Criminal Code. This basically meant he had willingly partaken in a large-scale theft from a bank account, because everything is fair in Russia, of course. Yurkov maintains he's innocent, and that this was a mistake from his bookmaker. After being charged, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison for taking advantage of a software breach. Number 4. $37 million in Dallas. It was a December evening when Ruth Balloon, a local of Dallas, Texas, checked her bank balance. She was surprised when she discovered she had received a deposit for $37 million. Her account at the Legacy Texas Bank went from a humble amount to that of a millionaire. Balloon very promptly told the bank what had happened. The company apologized for what had happened and withdrew the funds from her account. As it turned out, a person at Legacy Texas Bank had incorrectly entered Balloon's account number in the amount field, which led to the woman receiving a deposit for more than $37 million. Balloon did an international transaction the week prior to the mishap that required the bank to perform it manually into their system. By doing so, the person in charge wrongfully typed her account number where the amount of money should have been put in. A bank representative said that while the mistake was made by a human, their digital systems would have caught the error when doing their daily review in the evening, so there wasn't much to worry about. Legacy Texas made sure to keep a very chill attitude about the whole thing. From the moment Balloon made the call, they immediately sorted out the situation and assured everyone their banking system works well, something Balloon complained about. But Balloon and her husband were actually convinced, at least for a few minutes, they had received a millionaire deposit from some friendly donor. And for a few brief moments, the couple was actually a $1 million pair. Balloon thought that she might be able to use at least 10% of the money in a donation to her church, invested in real estate, and then made sure she donated another part to charity. But in the back of her mind, she knew the money wasn't hers. After the small mishap, Balloon thought that Legacy Texas might consider giving them some sort of monetary token of appreciation. After all, they had done the right thing by informing them of the error. The bank replied with a simple thank you note and didn't send her to prison. Sometimes the best reward is just keeping what you already have. Number 3. Sun's out, tongues out. A Pennsylvania couple suddenly received a surprising $120,000 into their joint bank account. On May 31st, 2019, Robert and Tiffany Williams of Lycoming County noticed they had received a shocking deposit on the account they had at BB&T Bank. The bank was supposed to make a transfer for that amount to a company named Dimension Covington Investment. It wasn't until a representative of Dimension communicated with the bank that the institution noticed and corrected the transfer for the allotted amount. A few days later, the bank noticed more than $107,000 were missing from the account they had originally made the mistaken deposit. The bank told Tiffany Williams she had to pay back the missing money. The woman merely said she would speak to her husband about it. Then she and her husband vanished. That's when the police got involved. The Williams initially said they had used the money to pay some bills and that it was Robert who had spent most of it. Tiffany seemed to be very open to discussing a repayment plan before never returning calls. It was later discovered the couple had gone on a splurge. They bought a Chevy, 2 4-wheelers, a race car, paid some bills, and even managed to give $15,000 to some friends who needed money. After the couple failed to cooperate with the bank in the repayment of the money, they were charged by state police for theft of property by lost or mislaid to go. Additional counts for receiving stolen property were added too. Even when the couple had knowingly acknowledged the money didn't belong to them, they refused to pay back the money. In court, the Williams were able to reach a plea agreement that dismissed some of the charges they were presented with, but they still had to repay $107,416 they had taken from the bank and perform 100 hours of community service. For a deeper dive into this story, click the link here. Number 2. 50 billion reasons. Darren James received a call from his wife that shocked him to the bone. They had received a whopping $50 billion transfer. Yes, billion, with a B, to their Chase account. When he received a screenshot that confirmed the highly unusual transfer, James couldn't believe how many zeros there were. After initially fantasizing that a rich relative had given him the money, he decided to call the bank. He knew the money wasn't hard-earned and could risk too much if they thought they tried to keep it. Also, they had never met anyone they knew that could have that amount of money. So maybe something shady was involved. While the error was taken care of in a matter of days, James still felt worried that his account had been compromised. He and his family never received an explanation as to why this deposit was made in the first place or where it came from. The bank just took the money out without a word. Of course, when the whole ordeal happened, James could imagine what he would be able to do with that big chunk of cash. He said he would have helped others and built a couple of children's hospitals. That probably would have been a much better use of the money. Number 1. Gold member. A man from Sydney received a shocking transfer into his account that spiraled out of control and left another couple deeply affected. Abdul Gadia, a 24-year-old, went crazy when he received almost $760,000 in his bank account. Somehow, the money belonged to an Australian celebrity couple who had planned to use it to buy their dream home. But how did it get there? The couple were told to transfer the money into a nominated Commonwealth account that just so happened to be in Gadia's name. The couple, Instagram famous nutritionist Tara Thorne and husband Corey, said their mortgage broker had his email account hacked. When confronted about the money, Gadia seemed to find it really amusing. Even when he was interviewed by a camera crew on an Aussie TV show, he was laughing. The man, who also had a side gig as a rapper and goes by the name Slimmy, would not say anything about how he spent the money. Gadia just woke up one day and saw all of the money. At first, he was very adamant in denying he had spent it, but later on it was proven he had gone on a shopping spree for the ages. Gadia spent almost $600,000 on gold bullion. He bought 14 gold bars in a span of 6 different visits to ABC Bullion. Over in Brisbane, Australia, he spent over $100,000 on gold bars and coins in Ainsley Bullion. He went on to exchange over $14,000 in foreign cash, as well as over 13,000 Aussie dollars in cash withdrawals. And as if this wasn't enough, he spent $6,200 on clothes. While it was obvious he had spent money that wasn't his, there was no clear indication Gadia had anything to do with the scam that led to him getting the money. Police have yet been able to find out where the $700,000 in gold went. When authorities got a hold of Gadia, he denied spending the money. But after seeing him post his incredible lyrics recounting the time, detective asked, quote, "Where'd the money go?" and Slimmy cleverly retorted that he speaks a different lingo, so it was very evident he was hiding something. Australian courts charged him for dealing with property proceeds from a crime with an amount larger than $100,000. His lingo became pleading guilty to the 2 charges. Part of his bail conditions included a 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew and a restraining order from any airport. Gadia was a somewhat notorious rapper in his local scene, having been described as a creative talent that used his difficult background growing up in southwest Sydney as an inspiration for his work. He was featured in a 2018 book about local rappers. Ultimately, Slimmy was given 18 months for his little shopping spree. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments below what you would do if you found $10,000 cash in your bank account.